Good morning and welcome, Patriot Radio News Hour. Happy Hump Day. Joe Jaquint, Jason Walker here on the 11th day of January. And we're 1 day away from the big CPI report. I think that's really got the markets focused right now. And what Jason and I, we've already talked. We think it's going to be a lower number. There's talk from JP Morgan that they may be going into your camp, Jason, saying, hey, February may be the last rate hike. And if that's the case, getting more metal stacked up is going to be a really good idea.
Yeah, that's what I've been seeing, Joe. We'll see what the CPI comes in at. And it wouldn't surprise me if we get the half point or the quarter point for February. I think it's going to be the half point, like you've been saying. But if they get a couple of good CPI numbers as far as lower inflation, I don't see why they keep raising the rates. I think they want to stop the rates and freeze because just like you were saying yesterday from Jamie Dimon, they could always raise it again later, right?
Well, and I think maybe that will be the spin on it all. Well, we can wait and raise it later, and I guess we'll see. I don't know. It's interesting as we talk about gold and silver. Remember that this is the trajectory that we're on. We've seen the start of the rally when they went from 0.75 of a basis points to 50 basis points. We're going to get a hike in February. I still think it's going to be 50. But it looks like, if nothing else, Jason, I'm now going to say I think we're going to hear talks of possibly going to 25 basis points and a lot more talk about a pause. We've already heard a little bit from, I want to say it was James Bullard. It'll be interesting to see how much more talk we get about a pause or a reduction when we get those numbers out tomorrow, because obviously if that number is lower like we're anticipating. And to your point, you're saying, hey, listen, that number could be a lot lower, right? We could be low 6, high 5s. If that's the case, I think we're setting up for a softer dollar and more room on this rally with gold and silver.
Correct, Joe, but I don't think the inflation is anywhere near going away. I think as I've looked at I never looked at huge inflationary cycles until, I guess, last year and then this year. And the ones like in the 1970s and 80s, those are the ones to look at, Joe. It is literally a roller coaster ride. It goes down, goes up, it goes down, it goes up. I think we're well positioned with the debt and the current situation of the economy in this country and worldwide that I don't know if they're going to raise rates again, Joe, but the inflation will go back up, and that'll be when. What is the Fed going to do then? They'll stop doing it now, but what are they going to do when the inflation comes roaring back? Then what, Joe? And I think that's when the markets. I think that's when Wall Street starts just selling like crazy. You know what? Here comes the inflation again. This is they know their days are numbered, Joe. That a huge sell-off will come. So we may not have a huge sell-off in February, March, and April. Maybe not, but this is a good time to be buying the metals, Joe. This is the time to buy it when everybody else is kind of deer in the headlights waiting around.
800-951-0592, allamericangold.com is the website, and inflation really continuing to hurt the financial situation of the American public out there. The latest data coming out on 401ks. And what's happening in the 401k market, just a huge increase. Almost half of Americans completely stopped saving in their 401ks in 2022, Jason. I mean, and again, right, listen, they took the pensions away from everybody. They tried to make it to where they could enrich themselves and told everybody you got to have this 401k. And obviously, everybody knows Social Security isn't enough. Then let's face it, how long is Social Security really going to be there? We don't know. It'll be there in some form, but how much money can you get when, listen, Social Security doesn't have any money, the government doesn't have any money, and now just this bout of inflation almost half of the people that were contributing to their 401k stopped.
You got to have money to pay for that taco that they put on their credit card, Joe. That's what it looks like is happening, right?
Yeah, right. Got to be able to afford to buy those eggs, right? I mean, they're saying that on top of that, 32%, that's incredible. That's a third of all 401ks withdrew some of their savings. And they're saying, Jason, they were doing it just to keep up with inflation.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's when you see people stop and contribute money to their 401k, that means, I could be wrong. You go to your job place and say, hey, I need to stop putting money in. I mean, essentially, it has to be a choice because that's automatically withdrawn, right?
Yeah, you've got to make that request, and I'm sure fill out the necessary paperwork to do that. And again, it just adds to this whole situation. What we keep talking about, the ending of the middle class. You know, we've got all these IRS agents that are coming on board. You know, yesterday we shared with everybody, listen, they're not out there for the millionaires and the billionaires. They're going after small business. They're going after middle class. They're going after all of those types of peoples out there. And now we're learning, hey, just in order to keep up, half of people stopped contributing to their 401k, and then a third actually had to take money out of their 401ks.
Yeah, that's definite indication, Joe, where we're heading in 2023.
800-951-0592, Patriot Radio News Hour, Joe and Jason. We'll be right back after the break. Eight 800-951-0592. The Dow's up 75. The S&P's up 20. The NASDAQ's up 85. Gold's down a few dollars right now, $18.74. Silver's down 24 cents, $23.42. This market recap brought to you by our friends at YRefi. And Jason, I've been talking to them over at YRefi. They're right here in Scottsdale. Great people, having tremendous response. Listen, this is just a great program. YRefi, high rates of return up to 10.25%. You got to have 50,000. That's the minimum investment, up to 5 years. So the longer you go, the better the rate. If you go all 5 years, you're locked in month after month. It's guaranteed 10.25%. Check them out. YRefi.com. That's the word invest, the letter Y, REFY, or call them 888-YRefi24, 888-YRefi24. Tell them Joe and Jason sent you. And Jason, I just got an email, just happened right now. We are going to help you stack some more silver today. It's absolute insanity. I've got 5 cases of Silver Eagles, 5 cases of Silver Eagles. You can buy them by the case. You can buy them by the roll. We've had them on sale, all week at $730. And we're like, dude, we are dollars less than everybody else. Forget that price. $700 today, Jason. I've got 5 cases. You know, there's 25 rolls in a case, so that's 125 rolls. $700 if you want a case of them. $17,500. So, Jason, even our sale price gets better.
Yeah, sometimes when Joe and I we sell $20 libs regularly and 10th ounce gold and Silver Eagles and junk silver, and these are our typical items that we sell. Joe and I sometimes we're talking in the morning, trying to figure out, oh man, it's the same thing, but stacking as much silver as you can is especially with what Joe is offering today. This is a great way to get in. Make a New Year's resolution, essentially. How many pounds can you add to yourself this year in metals? And this is a great way to get. I mean, every roll of silver is 1.25 pounds as a roll of Silver Eagles. So you're getting 20 ounces of silver in that roll. They're all 0.999 pure silver coins. I mean, I got one sitting right here. I can show you. anybody that buys these, you know what these are, but it's always, that you can actually watch us on the YouTube channel. You can see what these coins are. They got, of course, about a year ago, they changed the reverse. It doesn't have it has the new eagle on it, trying to get it to focus there. And $700 for a roll, Joe. I don't know how long it's been since we've been there. I think we touched down there when gold and silver had gone down a little bit recently, but this is just an exciting price point because we know where it's headed, and it's going to be heading up and heading up very drastically here in the months and weeks to come.
Yeah, when we look at silver, we're in that ballpark where, hey, we're talking 50% increase, maybe conservative, right? When we're looking at where the silver price could be here in 2023. I mean, I know, hey, Robert Kiyosaki saying, hey, listen, things fall right, you can have $75 silver. I don't know about that. But silver is, I think, without a doubt, is going to be at least in the 30s, potentially even into the 40s. So picking it up here at $700 a roll, that's just great value.
Joe, I think and I don't know what time frame Robert Kiyosaki mentioned in the article you read, but I think what Michael Burry and Robert Kiyosaki and some of these other guys, Peter Schiff, I think what they're looking at in 2023 is what I've been saying. I think the inflation numbers come down. There's this peace and harmony a little bit in the stock market, Wall Street, and then the inflation comes back. And I think that happens this year. And that's when I think the $75 silver is possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I see record gold and record silver, and then I see some fake emergency is going to just magically pop up at the same time, so that you can blame the emergency on what's happening, Joe. So that's happening this year, and I don't know how far the stocks will go down or housing prices and all this other stuff. We'll watch that week to week, but that's what's going to happen. I think that's why Robert Kiyosaki is making those predictions, Joe. I think that's what we're headed for, the sort of the bullwhip. What Michael Burry talked about, Robert Kiyosaki is looking at the inflation not going away. I'm sure that's Peter Schiff is saying inflation for another decade, way above 2% for a decade, Joe. That's very possible. That's what we're talking about, 4 to 5%, right, Joe? That might be the new regular number.
Yeah, it could absolutely be. And when we're sitting here and we're talking about that type of stuff, Jeff Gundlach, another one of the people that I tell you got to pay attention, the Bond King, when he's talking. And Jason, he's saying very similar things, that we could get this sudden spike down in inflation, right? That's going to cause all kinds of other issues. And of course, the problem with that, got to remember, so what's the problem with that? Because a lot of people be like, hey, less inflation, that's going to be good news. It's not going to be the way you think it's going to be. That's really the problem.
Right.
Because what's going to happen is all of this reduction, right? And Gundlach talked about housing again. You got to remember all of these loans, all these derivatives that are sitting on these balance sheets of these banks, Jason. A reduction in inflation just means, hey, guess what? The value of all that debt isn't really worth what it was.
Also, sudden deflation, Joe, turns into the job losses that you've been watching for. Because if you can't sell your goods and services at the higher price, you have to suddenly cut your margins and push downward on the price. And suddenly, I got to trim back the workers. I got to shut down stores. And then the inflation comes roaring back after that, and there's still no buyers of stuff. That's how dangerous the situation is going to be, Joe. We could be in a situation where the job losses come in and we start to see the massive recession that's going to hit. And then the inflation comes back and there's still no buyers of stuff, Joe. Inflation just isn't just simply, hey, there's too much money out there. It's also that the goods and services simply aren't available and also that nobody's buying them. So the few people that are buying them, there's almost nothing out there. It's kind of like when you have a high demand and a high amount of goods and services, you can have inflation as long as the demand is higher than the goods and services. I think what we'll end up with is a lower amount of demand and a lower amount of goods. And you can still have inflation there as long as the demand is just slightly higher than the goods, Joe. That's what I think we're heading for. China's reopening and they're desperate to send goods to America, and America's just saying stop sending it. That's what's getting ready to happen.
It's going to be interesting. Yeah, I'll say this. I'll be honest. I'm torn in both directions. I see both scenarios. I see a scenario where inflation comes down much quicker than some people think. To Jason's point, the job losses start coming, the margin pressures start happening. But I can also see another scenario where that doesn't happen. We talked about China reopening already. China increased oil shipments by 20%. They're out there now saying that they're starting to import more food again, right? The pork and the soybeans and the corn. It's going to be interesting. I'm just not sure what it's going to look like, but I do believe this. I know this for a fact. Over the next, say, 8 weeks, we are definitely going to see a softening in the inflation number. Is that softening going to be enough to get the Fed to stop raising rates? I think that's really the question.
Correct, Joe. And see how the narrative and the speech of the markets have changed just over 2 years to where, hey, man, if we get it down to, let's say 6.3 the CPI or 6.4 on the next number, and then it goes down to 5.9 the next month, and everyone's going to be having a party. It's like, oh, look how fast it's falling. Let's say it even gets down in the next few months down to 4.8, Joe. And everyone's all excited. Well, wait a minute. Didn't a couple of years ago, wouldn't 4.8 be a disaster?
Well,
that's right? A good number and you shut it down?
They'll celebrate. Well, that's how they get us, right? That's how they trick us now. All of a sudden, anything close to 5. So let's just say I'm right. Okay, let's just say I'm right. And they go half of a point in February. So we got what? A couple of weeks here. 3 weeks from now, we're going to go half of a point. That would put the Fed funds rate between 4.75 and 5%. To your point, if over the next 8 weeks, we start seeing inflation get to 5%, you're going to hear the market say, okay, Fed, your rates are high enough now because your rates as high as what the inflation is, and that should be good, right? That'll give them ammunition to stop the rate hiking cycle.
Correct. And then what I don't know if they know for sure, the people making the decisions, you would think that these guys are smart enough to know this. They're the ones making the decisions. The inflation comes back, Joe, because food's not coming down. Just because the inflation rate's coming down, 5% or 6% inflation, which is, remember, this is the rigged number. It's more like 10% or 12% if it's 5 or 6. That still means your food is going up every single month, Joe. Every single month, your goods and services are going up. But the news is going to talk about how everything's coming down. Everything's coming down. It just makes everyone feel warm and fuzzy. It still means your food is going up. It still means your energy prices are going up. It still means there's going to be a war that's going to cause havoc and all this other stuff. It's all going to be there. They just want you to get used to a new, lower standard of living, Joe. They've done it many times before.
I mean, I'm just shocked. Everybody out there, you need to get ready. When we're talking about half of the people stop contributing to the 401k, I've never, even during the financial crisis, I don't know if the number was that half. You're talking about a third of people are borrowing money out of their 401ks. Jason, that is not healthy. That is not middle class. That is not a good thing for any of us out there. And when we think about today, Kroger, Walmart, Costco said, listen, we're out of eggs. How can we be out of eggs? But we're out of eggs, right? I mean, the fact of the matter is, hey, I need eggs today. And well, gosh, the one that's only $4 is empty, right? I can buy one for $7 or $8 or $10, but otherwise I'm not buying eggs.
Yeah. And here in Colorado, I think, and I need to look this up. Maybe so somebody else is listening. They can help me out. But I know in Colorado, they passed a law that says all eggs have to be cage free. So the big egg producers that have like 4 chickens in one little cage, they're just popping out eggs as fast as they can. Those are not allowed to be sold in Colorado. They have to be out of a cage. So we don't have eggs here in Colorado. And that affects the entire country. Even if it's just Colorado, that affects the entire country. Here's a government regulation, a law passed in Colorado, and we're going to treat the chickens better. I'm good with that. I like to eat, better quality food. So I'm not totally against it. I just don't like government telling us to do it. But that means all of the cage-free eggs that are available, more of them have to come to Colorado. It's going to create more inflation. It creates more inflation, Joe, because there's more money pulling at what small goods there are. And the people that loved the cheapest egg on the market, now they can't get them in Colorado. They have to get cage free, which suddenly became much more expensive on top of the inflation. And then, Colorado passed more laws starting 2023 than any other state in the country. We're paying 10 cents for bags now. They pass a bag charge 10 cents, and it's so ridiculous because don't the people in government understand that everything that the business has to pay in expenses already get sent to the customer? They don't get this. So now I guess we're going to give an extra 10 cents a bag. I don't know how much those bags cost, a quarter cent, Joe, maybe a tenth of a cent. And this is just adds to the problem, just like Joe Biden shutting off the oil, things like that, right, Joe?
Yeah, matter of fact, the Biden administration refusing to fill the strategic oil reserve, saying that the price for oil was just too high. Too high. We're not going to fill it. At 75, 76. I don't think we're going to fill it at all. If that's the case, I don't know that oil can get much cheaper. We'll see. I mean, listen, if we get, 5, 10, 15 million people losing their jobs, I guess oil would get cheaper, right?
You know
no doubt about that.
What that means to me, Joe, is I think he wants to fill it at $150 a barrel. That's what I think he's going to do.
Hey, you want to fill something up? Fill up your portfolio with a bunch of Silver Eagles today. What a special, $700 a roll. (800-951-0592). Joe and Jason, Patriot Radio News Hour. I've got the Silver Eagles up on the webpage as well, allamericangold.com. If you want to hit the shopping cart button there, $700 today. Jason, and they've been, $730 I thought was a smoking deal. $700 today. I got about 100 rolls still left. So get them while you can. 800-951-0592. Just keep stacking it here. Gold's just turned positive. Silver's making up some ground as well. The small business optimism survey just came out, and it wasn't good. It was bouncing back. Obviously during the holidays, small businesses, hey, we're feeling a little bit better. Jason, came crashing back down. We're now, get this, we're below where we were at the height of the financial crisis as far as optimism for small business. And Jason, they're all saying the same thing. Margin, 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 right? That's it. They're saying, hey, listen, I know these headline inflation numbers are coming down. My costs are not coming down. I'll give you a great example. A great customer of ours. He's a private grocer up north in the small towns here in Arizona. He has a supermarket up there where the big stores, like the Walmarts and the Krogers, hey, there's not enough people up there to service those communities. We're not interested. He was just sharing with me yesterday. He just got notification that his shipping charges are going up again. And you think about it, you're like, wait a minute, but gas is down like $1.50 a gallon, but costs are still going up for these little businesses.
Yeah, Joe, and as we were talking on the last segment, the one thing about inflation is as long as people have money to pay for stuff, which they've had through 2022 through a lot of the free money the government gave out, when the prices go up, the sellers can, let's just say it's a percentage. Hey, our markup is 10%. Well, and something costs $100, their markup is $10. If something goes to $200, well, then it's $20. So it doesn't hurt the seller too much as long as there's customers. The problem is the money's run out, and when Joe's saying margin, it's like, look, you just got to sell for whatever profit you can if people aren't buying anything. That's where we're headed. This is why, Joe, I think that I'm glad you brought this up, because this is why I see the inflation going down because of lack of purchasing. And then it's going to springboard back up, because even if you have low demand, if your inventory is still lower than a low demand, your inflation will go up. And what, the government's going to spend another whatever $1 trillion here and there. The Fed is probably going to start stimulating at some point, or for all we know, they're giving a bunch of money out right now, like they did during 2008. And they just didn't tell us, right, Joe? So I think that inflation comes roaring back after these little stores are just going to be crumbling and falling apart, Joe.
It's going to be, and again, I'm hearing from most of my businesses that things have slowed, but now I'm starting to hear something new, which is, hey, things have slowed, and my clientele is telling me they're hurting. Right? They're hearing from the clients like, hey, you know what? Yeah, I used to come in here and spend 20, 30, 40, $50. I'm not, you know what? I'm going to have a beer and leave, right? Or I'm going to get the sandwich. I'm not ordering the soft drink, right? I'm just going to have water, right? Things like that. These little things that are starting to emerge here. How about this in Ireland? Guinness, right? We know Guinness, the beer. They announced that they have to raise their price of a pint of Guinness by 12 euros, 12 euro cents anyway, not 12 euro dollars, but by 12 cents. The Irish prime minister came out and said this is going to cause financial hardship for many. I mean, this is, you know, there's a line, right? At some point, you're like, okay, I can't do it anymore.
Right, Joe. And I think one of the things we'll start seeing a lot more of later in the year, and I'm just my wife bought some groceries yesterday. You're starting to see a little more, I think, another uptick of that shrinkflation. That's going to happen. Hey, we don't have to raise the price. We'll just lower the ounces in the package, right? I think you'll start seeing a whole lot of shrinkflation going on later this year. Actually, it's been going on all the time, but I think you'll see an uptick in it, Joe. Your packages on the shelves are going to get smaller, I think.
Well, let's put the picture together of why we think we're probably going to see a fall in inflation. Credit cards are maxed out, right? The four highest single monthly increases in credit card debt all happened in 2022. All of them. The four highest ones. And if I research, maybe in the five highest. Then you think about 401ks. Half the people have stopped contributing. A third of them have borrowed money against it. Jason, that just tells you these are signs. These are the warning signs. This is what happens first before you see the drop in demand. And it just looks like to me that drop's got to be coming, which means if the drop in demand comes, that means the layoffs come.
That's exactly the path that we're headed towards. Yeah, the job losses, which don't seem to be coming, but they're on the horizon. That they're coming. They're coming. When nobody's buying anything, then the businesses can't afford to have employees doing nothing. You know, I know there's a lot of jobs where people tend to do a lot of nothing, Joe, but I don't think they can afford to pay those guys anymore, right?
Again, we're just trying to put pieces to the puzzle together. I'm out there. I'm looking at people that I follow. Jeffrey Gundlach, who we've talked about, Robert Kiyosaki, who we've talked about. How about Nouriel Roubini? He was out today and saying, listen, gold's going to average at least 10% a year for the next 5 years, and that's on the low side, as far as Roubini, and he's talking about debt and this debt bomb. Listen, this debt bomb, it's not just government debt or banking debt. It's consumer debt, right? The consumer now, we went through, when the government was throwing around money, right? For the first time in a long time, you saw consumers paying all that debt down. Jason, all of a sudden, really, in the last, say, 6 to 8 months, we've seen a huge turnaround in the debt on consumers, and it just exploding higher and higher. And now are we at that tipping point?
Yeah, I like I said, I think the thing is happening since we're doing this every day, Joe. It's really at a crawl pace, but I think it's happening slower. I think the '08 crash. I mean, I think it seems like it happened fast. It was kind of slow, but it was sudden, though. It wasn't. There were some big days or some real emergencies, but it did carry over several years in a row. This thing just seems to be happening a little slower. So for the people in the know, it seems like it's happening really slow. A few years from now, Joe, it'll seem like it happened pretty fast, though, won't it?
Yeah, we'll talk about that because it wasn't as fast as people remember. Patriot Radio News Hour will be back right after the break. 800-951-0592. Joe and Jason, Patriot Radio News Hour on this Wednesday. U.S. Silver Eagles, man, they were already on sale. Now they are really on sale. Another $30 a roll off. That's a dollar and a half an ounce less than yesterday. $700 a roll at 800-951-0592. Gold's now up almost $2 here, $18.78. Silver coming back here now, $23.50. Down about 15 cents here. We'll see if it continues to rally throughout the day. Remember, tomorrow's the CPI report. We're anticipating a lower number, potentially a much lower number, which we think, obviously we don't know, right, Jay? But we think that's bullish for gold and silver come tomorrow.
Yeah, I think most of the news the rest of this year will have strong indications for gold. I mean, if you look at gold through all of 2022, the average price is only about $2 higher than 2021, but it stayed at that price with the dollar strength that went through the roof. So can you imagine if the dollar strength is not through the roof in 2023, which it won't be? I don't know if it'll crash, but I don't think it'll be as strong as it was in 2022. Every single piece of information that we're going to talk about with the economy, Joe, is just going to make gold a stronger buy. I don't see where the good news is going to be coming, except for when they try to pump the information into the mass media that, oh, hey, the inflation's down. That's the only thing they're going to hinge their wagon to, Joe.
Yeah, and with that, obviously, you get, hey, we can pause. We don't have to raise rates. And that's where that dollar weakness comes into effect. And we are talking about the 08 crash and how people thought it was sudden. You got to remember, it started much earlier. 2005, right? The housing market in Phoenix came to a dead stop. I mean, we had people lined up in the desert, right? To pay $10, $20, $30, $50,000 for a piece of dirt, right? To put the house that was going to be built, 9 months from now on it. And then all of a sudden it stopped. Right. And then you think about 06 is when they kind of, we're talking about the actual housing, starting to have froth and subprime. We started to hear things like that. You got to remember, I mean, it was August of 07 when Ben Bernanke was saying, hey, we're going to raise rates another quarter of a point. And then, of course, everything fell out of bed. Lehman went under. Yep. Fast forward to March of 08, Bear Stearns goes under. But Jason, there was a lot of signs leading up to that suddenly, we were having all these problems, 05, 06, 07, and then all of a sudden, 08, it felt like it was suddenly because, right, Wall Street just collapsed.
And I can add to that, it went longer than 08. I just mentioned yesterday that nationwide, every market's different, but nationwide, the bottom of the house pricing was in 2012. So to add to what Joe said about what was happening in Arizona before 08, I was a pizza delivery driver in 2010. I had bought my house late 2004, basically 2005. In 2010, I walked out my front door. The pizza driver, I was really good with money. What little I had, I took care of. But both houses on both sides of my house, my neighbors, and the three houses across the street directly, they were all empty in 2010. So it took a while, Joe, for all of this to move through the markets.
Yeah, you think about, quantitative easing, that was all the way through 2011. Where, remember that one, it peaked out at about $4.5 trillion, right? Now we doubled that now to $9 trillion. And Jason, if things start going the way all of a sudden they appear to be going, where the consumer's really under a lot more stress than what we were led to believe, and now we're going to start seeing this drop in demand, that survey from the small business, that's very concerning because the small businesses obviously were very stressed about inflation. We're really worried about it all year, started to feel better about it, right, over the holidays, right? We saw gas prices come down and things of that nature. Jason, they just went right back to it here in the latest survey and said, you know what? We're worried. Our margins, we've got to lower our price, yet the cost is still going up, and they're worried about margins.
Yeah, when the margin goes down, the business owner or the business manager has to start cutting all around them. Hey, I got to cut as much fat out of this as I can, Joe, and we're seeing it. It's really happening, and like I said, the inflation is just a huge gorilla weight on top of everybody's shoulders, Joe. It was okay when you can just keep charging it as people are still buying, but at some point the inflation becomes too heavy for the average small buyer, the average Joe on the street, and they stop buying. I mean, look, just the simple example that Joe had of, hey, we're going out to eat, but I'm ordering the water instead of the glass of wine or the Coke. Those make a huge impact as time moves on, and that means jobs get cut, certain services get cut. I mean, how many flavors of certain things are off the aisles, or how many choices on the menu at the restaurants are disappearing? How many items at the store, when you had all these choices, now you have less choices? That's what's getting ready to happen, Joe, and it's going to be very destructive.
Yeah, it's really kind of scary right now, especially the big change for me. I knew about the credit cards, right? Because I watch that every month. We've seen this huge growth in credit card debt in 2022. We've never seen credit card debt grow this fast in such a short period of time. But it was the report today about 401ks. And how many people said, man, I've got to stop contributing. And think about it. Wage growth was for practical terms, was huge in 2022. Not nearly enough, though. Patriot Radio News Hour, final segment. Get those Silver Eagles while you can. $700 a roll. Jason and I wrapping it up in the next segment. 800-951-0592. Patriot Radio News Hour, Joe and Jason. Gold's up a couple bucks here, 1878. Silver, 2352. The Dow's up 100 points. Crude oil, Jason, one of their better days, as again, the story about China reopening. Crude oil up about $2.50 a barrel here, 77.50. Brent crude back in the 80s, 82.51. And again, we're talking about the big update today. We had two big pieces of news. First, there was the small business survey. These small businesses, Jason, saying, hey, our optimism, it's falling again. We're under pressure here. Margin pressures everywhere. I know that they're saying inflation is coming down, but we're not seeing it. And now the consumer looks like they're tapped out.
Yeah, I think we've been saying this since last year, but it's hard to gauge, right, Joe? Because you're in Arizona, and I'm in Colorado, and we can see what's going on here locally in our areas. It's hard to do like a nationwide understanding of how tapped out people are. I think it started in 2022. I just think, once again, this thing is a little slower motion than I think you and I are watching, Joe. So we almost have to be patient in what we're looking at. And you're right. I think people are tapped out. It's just, I don't think they're 100% tapped out. You know what I mean? I think we're in the 60 or 70%, moving towards 80, 90%. And as the next few weeks, just the next few weeks, but the next few months pile on, Joe, all those Christmas bills coming in and no more Christmas bonuses, and companies tend to want to do a lot of changes in January. Hey, we're going to downsize this and downsize that. The destruction of the economy and people running out of money is going to get even worse starting now. I mean, I'd say starting since the first of the year.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. You know, we know especially the people at the lower end that were already pitching pennies in the struggles there. It really is. Again, we're going to watch and see here. I did not like that small business survey, because to me, when I see things like that, that means they're getting ready to lay people off. Because that's really, as a business owner, right? What are your options, right? Hey, well, this is where I'm located, right? So well, okay, you probably got to stay where you're at, right? This is where I conduct my business. The next place when you look at cutting cost, Jason, you go right to that labor.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, especially with small business. Anybody that's worked for a small business, which is almost everybody I know, knows that if the owner really has to, he can stop doing the 30-hour or the 20-hour work week when his business is working really good. And he can just go back to that 50-hour work week. And how does he perform that? He just cuts a few workers out of the way. Because let's face it, if the boss man is who the boss man should be, he knows how to run everything in that business, and he can take out 2, 3, or 4 workers and cheapen his cost that way, Joe.
Yeah, it's going to be I think 2023 is going to be an extremely interesting year. I think there's going to be a lot of emotional swings out there, but at the end of the day, as that underlying economy, because that's really the name of the game, what's going to happen to the underbelly of the U.S. economy? Are we going to see these layoffs? How high are rates going to go? There's going to be reason for optimism when you get lower inflation numbers. And then, again, reasons to not be very optimistic when small business says, hey, we've got a problem. U.S. Silver Eagles, though, there ain't a problem there. One of the cheapest prices in the last several years, $700 a roll at 800-951-0592. We got about 50 rolls left. So keep adding them, keep stacking them. Jason and I, we're coming right back with the half empty cup.